David Kerr of the Chicago Reader said the first film in this franchise is one of the few star comedies of the early 80s to allot some humor and personality to the minor characters. Of the second film, Jay Boyar of the Orlando Sentinel says it's a precisely timed affair. So many seconds for this, so many seconds for that, and the natural flow of the story be damned. But the negative reviews didn't stop them from making a third film 6 years later, about which Joe Brown of the Washington Post describes as the most lackluster film in the franchise. And the subsequent TV series didn't make it past the pilot testing phase due to lack of interest. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we discuss the past, present, and potential future of the Beverly Hills Cop franchise.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be?
It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters. It's Ruined Childhoods time.
It sure is.
It's me, Dan. I'm here with John.
Hey guys, how's it going? Dan, your play has opened. You feeling good?
Well, so for those of you who are perhaps listening for the first time, and even those who are not listening for the first time but may not have heard our A Few Good Men episode, I have been directing a high school production of the play A Few Good Men, which, as I've learned, many people are not aware the play came before the movie. In fact, the play opened 30 years ago, let's see, November 15th, 1989, so approximately 30 years ago, or depending on when you're listening to this, it could be exactly 30 years ago. And it's the closing night of our show as well. But when it opened on Broadway, with Tom Hulse as Lieutenant Daniel Caffey and Stephen Lang as Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Jessup, the roles made famous by Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson in the movie. And I don't recall the actress who played Joe Galloway, but in the film was played by Demi Moore. And you know, it's an iconic movie, and I won't get into all of the... If you want to hear a lot about my concept for this and how I kind of figured out that I could potentially do this at a high school, check out our episode on A Few Good Men. I'm certain that I ramble on quite a bit about it in that episode.
Yeah, but it's really interesting, and if you want to know more about that... It was in
context.
It was in context, yeah.
Point is, I won't ramble right now, but let's just put it this way. I recast several of the roles to be played by women, and not just I want to do this play, but there aren't that many guys in the theater program. It was more of hey, these characters actually really work very well as women, and among those Colonel Jessup, because how do you get past the audience's expectation of Jack Nicholson is you don't give them any, you give them some, no one's going to go in and see the 16-year-old girl playing Jessup and start thinking like, let's see if she's just like Jack Nicholson. Whereas I think any guy in the role, you're comparing him to Jack Nicholson, or you run that risk.
Right.
So long story short, we played around with some of the casting in terms of gender, and I mean, really, it was gender blind with the exception of a few roles, and it really worked, and it really feels good to know that it worked because it was an idea that I'd had. I looked online, and please feel free to email us at ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com if you know of any instances of this. But I was looking online for any type of production of A Few Good Men where the role of Jessup was recast as a woman, where I also had Kendrick, who was played by Kiefer Sutherland in the movie, played by a phenomenal actress. She's one of the few actors who does not need a microphone. If she had a microphone, she would blow out the speakers. No. She's amazing. There's one scene where she just she's almost like she's this like almost drill sergeant like, and she's yelling at all the different squad leaders, and it's so intense. And she's just an intense character. She's amazing. Yeah, she was going to shave her head. All credits are she was going to shave her head, and then her parents were like, Thanksgiving is 2 weeks away, and we are going to, be visiting with family who might not be appreciative of that.
Parents just don't get theater.
Understand?
They don't understand.
Parents just don't understand. And so they certainly don't understand the theater. But I have the kid playing Kaffee, who, in the movie, they have the benefit of, editing.
Right.
In the play. But the play is written very much like a screenplay. So it's like we've got lights going on upstage right where you're in Kaffee's apartment. And the next thing you know, Kaffee crosses downstage left and it's 2 days later and he's talking to people in the brig. And this kid does an amazing job. Like these kids do an amazing job. And I'm biased, but now that I've heard other people say it, I can say it. It's like you forget you're watching kids. You forget you're watching teenagers.
Yeah. And
they just are doing such a phenomenal job of taking on these roles. And I think adding depth to them, I would take this concept to Aaron Sorkin. I want to, get in touch with Aaron Sorkin because he had said a few years ago they were going to reboot it with Alec Baldwin as Jessup for an NBC Live. Yeah. And one of the reasons why Sorkin kind of delayed it / backed out of it was that he couldn't find a way to make A Few Good Men feel fresh, feel relevant, and, create a version of it that stands independently of the movie. And to that I say, Mr. Sorkin, please email me at ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
And speaking of emailing ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com, we have a fresh email from our boy French Fry Phil.
Yeah, hey Phil.
Who says, gents, this is in reference to our Demolition Man episode. Gents, I've never seen Demolition Man, but I think I want to watch it after listening to your discussion. Maybe, maybe not. To answer the question posed towards the end of the episode, a cryogenically frozen movie released prior to Demolition Man was 1992's Forever Young, starring Mel Gibson, who also stars in the Mad Max franchise directed by George Miller, who also directed Lorenzo's Oil.
Yes, well done, Phil. Well done. And interestingly enough, now I know that this is not a cryogenically frozen themed movie, but also from 1992, Encino Man.
Oh yeah, frozen in a block of ice.
Similar concept. I can't connect Pauly Shore to Lorenzo's Oil right now, though. I'm sure through Sean Astin, you could probably make that connection.
Let's
or Brendan
see.
Fraser.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser is probably going to be an easier route. Once you get to Brendan Fraser, then you get School Ties, which really opens up the web quite a bit.
Oh, you have Damon and Affleck.
Yeah, we're not going to do this right now. We can put a pin in that.
Goodness,
not like we're ever going to do an Encino Man episode, but
or a school. Will we ever do a School Ties episode?
I think it's on our list.
I think we could do. Yeah, John and I can talk about School Ties. So
we're not cowards.
Well, I will mention this, John. It just came to mind, but I remember several years ago visiting you in Los Angeles and the two of us going on a hunt for a copy of School Ties.
I believe it's streaming currently on something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely noticed when it is.
So on this episode,
that's not what we're here to talk about.
So we chose to talk about Beverly Hills Cop because you are in the throes of your production of A Few Good Men and are less likely to be able to just put on a movie to research for this podcast. So we chose Beverly Hills Cop because it's something that you certainly don't need to rewatch. It's something that I didn't think I needed to, but I enjoyed rewatching Beverly Hills Cop, as well as Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Oh, I'm glad you rewatched. I did not. My familiarity with them is I've seen 1 and 2 several times, and they're good background movies. In fact, I had part 1 on this afternoon as I was catching up with some of my non-play related work, and they're just fun movies. And I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but like 2 incredible soundtracks as well. But
sure. Well, I mean, we can start with that if you want. I mean, Axel F.
Oh, well, I'm just gonna say, like, with part 3, I remember seeing it. Part 3 is the only one that I saw in the theater. I saw it at the new park in Roselle Park.
Okay.
Yeah, in the summer of 1994.
Is that just like for new listeners, Dan and I are brothers. We grew up in New Jersey. Roselle Park was a nearby town. Was there just one main movie theater there? I can only remember one movie theater.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember seeing Coneheads there for sure. I know
okay. So my potential correction on that is I am fairly certain that I saw Coneheads with you and Scott and Jeff Rubin.
Correct.
And perhaps others. And I am fairly positive that we saw it at the Union.
I remember
theater.
seeing it at Roselle Park, but
okay,
you have the memory for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I also could be wrong. It's possible.
So you saw Beverly Hills Cop 3 there, okay?
I definitely saw Beverly Hills Cop 3 in Roselle Park. And that movie theater was cool because a few of the cinemas had like stadium seating, and that was kind of it was before like stadium seating became the norm.
Right. Yeah.
In most movie theaters.
So
saw Beverly Hills Cop 4 there.
So Beverly Hills Cop, right? Beverly Hills Cop 4. We'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Beverly Hills Cop. It is one of the early Eddie Murphy movies that like really showcased. What's up?
Yeah. Well, I mean, though, really, like the very first Eddie Murphy movie, 1982's 48 Hours,
right,
in which he starred with Nick Nolte of Lorenzo's Oil.
Yes. That's the easy one. We'll get into some others later.
Oh, I had a backup in case you got to that one first.
Well, anyway, we for new listeners and anybody who was confused by the end of French Fry Phil's email, we have a fun little game that we play where we try to connect actors from these movies to Lorenzo's Oil, the film starring Nick.
The cast of Lorenzo's
Oil. Yeah, well, I mean, I think director...
Also released in 1992.
There you go. Interesting.
Along with Encino Man and Forever Young.
So...
Which sadly contradicts Lorenzo's Oil.
Contradicts Lorenzo's Oil?
Forever Young.
Oh. Yikes.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Beverly Hills Cop. I'm going to try to breeze through the plots of each of these movies. So Axel Foley is our protagonist. That is Eddie Murphy. He is a cop in Detroit who, as we see at the beginning of the movie, kind of takes it upon himself to go undercover in a sting of stolen cigarettes. It's like a stolen cigarette ring, and he's trying to bust them. It's just like, getting him, we're showing him in his element, using his wits to crack a case. But as we see, Inspector Todd, who's his boss, doesn't so much care for his antics and, the way that he went, I guess, away from his assigned duties to take on this case. So after that case kind of folds in on itself, Axel Foley is he encounters his friend Mikey, who's like his BFF from like forever, and Mikey's a delinquent. Which what?
Doesn't BFF mean best friend forever?
Well, the F in forever, the The second F and forever implies going into the future. But I'm talking about like going back to the beginning. They've been BFFs.
Keep going, John.
You know
Keep
what?
Going.
It's late on a Sunday night. I'm on very little sleep. So
I'm sorry. I have all the sympathy and empathy in the world for
so
you.
they're besties, and you can tell that Axel kind of has a bit of a delinquent past. He mentions that a little bit here and there, but Mikey is for sure delinquent, and they're catching up, and he tells them that he was working in Beverly Hills doing security, and he got that job through their friend Jenny. And as they're kind of like catching up, Mikey shows him some bonds that he found, and he just starts to explain how like they're just kind of like German bearer bonds. Bonds. They're just kind of like sitting around. There's like trucks full of them. So he like grabbed a few, and he's like telling Axel about it, and Axel is kind of like not cool. And that's when a bunch of thugs come, and they knock out Axel and assassinate Mikey. They just like pop him in the back of the head. Jonathan Banks, an early role from Jonathan Banks, more recently made famous from shows like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
But I mean, though I would say like at least most people of my generation would like when he popped up on Breaking Bad. I feel like the association before I was like, was like, oh, who is that guy? What's his name? It was just like, oh man, that's like the thug from Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, he was in a bunch of stuff, but like, yeah, I feel like, and you know what? This is an interesting thing to talk about because Dan, you and I, we're from different generations.
Yes,
we cross.
I guess I'm on the.
You're the Gen Xer. I'm the millennial.
I'm the late end of Gen X.
And I'm the early end of millennial. So it's like,
yeah, true.
But still we're kind of like towing that line. But I feel like millennials would recognize him from Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul first. And because I feel like in the back of my head, I was like, that guy's super familiar, but I'll never come up with where I know him from. But now he's the guy from Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Whereas prior to that, I mean, and then he also he's in Gremlins. Right. He's the sheriff in Gremlins. But he always, to me, he was the hitman from Beverly Hills Cop who killed Mikey Tandino.
Right.
And
Mikey.
Yeah. Anyway, John, let me let you get back to the plot.
Yeah.
Synopsis
so
here.
After Axel comes to and the police are starting their investigation. He's trying to help out, but Inspector Todd is kind of like, no, you stay out of this. You're not allowed to touch this. So Axel decides it's a good time to use some vacation days that are coming to him. And even though he is ordered to not touch this case at all, he, as Axel Foley is wanting to do, ignores those orders. And he makes his way to Beverly Hills. And the only lead that he has is their friend Jenny, who is a manager at a gallery, and she points him in the direction of the gallery owner, Victor Maitland, who is kind of like the biggest art dealer in Beverly Hills, something like that. And
he's one of the biggest art dealers in the
world, whatever. So he goes to check out Victor Maitland and immediately gets kicked out of the office in a very dramatic way. They throw him out of the window of the lobby. The door is right there. They break their own window. The door is right there. It's like you've only inconvenienced yourselves.
This is the difference between watching it as an adult and watching it in high school, which I want to say was I watched it a lot in high school, is that as an adult, you're like, well, they're the ones who are going to have to pay for that window. That was just stupid.
Yeah. So
bad security, guys.
It's after he's busted by the cops for, I guess, disturbing the peace or whatever.
Yes, disturbing the peace.
Yeah. That's when he meets Taggart and Rosewood. And They are just wonderful.
John Ashton and Judge Reinhold.
That's right. They
were
fantastic.
What's funny is, as I was reading, doing some background research, that they were directed to play, and I think this was from their auditioning or like from their screen testing, like a married couple.
Yeah.
And then apparently the whole thing about like the 50 pounds of undigested red meat that Judge Reinhold does was something
like,
that
you eat a lot of red
improvised. Yeah. But it's so funny because it's like the tone of their discussions does have that familiarity to it. But after like I had read that and then as I had it on today, I was like, oh my God, they are just nailing that relationship.
It's absolutely accurate. If you think back to it or watch it with that in mind, they play that really well. I don't know.
Their chemistry is so. I love the way that this movie's written.
It moves. It's entertaining. It's suspenseful. It's really a lot of fun. And I'll go back a little bit to meeting up with Jenny at the art gallery. That's when we also meet Serge, who's
Serge.
Serge.
Well, that's what Axel calls him.
You mean
Serge.
Achmel?
Yeah.
Serge is maybe one of my favorite characters in cinema. He's just so delightful in parts 1 and 3. And we'll get into his role in part 3 later, but like he plays the like gallery assistant so perfectly, where it seems like I can't tell if he is genuinely being nice to them or if he's really put out when he's offering some espresso with a lemon twist. And
yeah, I'm making myself.
He's so casual with things, and some of his, I have to assume, ad-libbing in the third Beverly Hills Cop is so delightful. Bronson Pinchot just kills it in this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because it's basically like for people who would know Bronson Pinchot from Perfect Strangers, which I knew. So I knew Bronson Pinchot from Perfect Strangers before I knew him from Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
It's a similar type of voice. I think when they hired him for Perfect Strangers, which is ironic because Perfect Strangers was what prevented him from being able to be in Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah. So
they wanted to bring him back.
And it's funny because you have Eddie Murphy, who's like at that time kind of like the funniest person on the planet. Like he is, his prime lasted a very long time, but
well, are we talking 1984 or 1987?
I was thinking 84.
84 was like
that's like his breakout moment.
I think he had just left Saturday Night Live in, I want to say, I think 84 was his last, like 83, 84 might have been his last season on SNL. So by the end of 1984, he had 48 Hours, Trading Places, and then Beverly Hills Cop.
It's huge.
Which I want to say came out in December of 84. It was the second biggest movie of 1984.
Yeah. It was huge.
Behind Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah, he was just huge. Absolutely huge. And to have a character playing this super funny role, like, Serge is just there for comedic value, and to play off of the funniest person kind of in that moment must be really challenging. And I feel like he did such a good job because, he's a very cartoonish character, more so in the third than in the first, but still in the first, it's just like, oh my God, get a load of this guy. And
well, and I guess if you, sorry,
no, please.
I guess if you think about it, he's also really, other than Foley, the only other character that's really a comedic
Rosewood
character. Rosewood is comedic, but only he's not
it's a situation based comedy.
Exactly. It's situational. It's relation based, relationship based comedy. But yeah, Rosewood, I think Rosewood he's not played for laughs. Yeah. He's funny.
Yeah.
but
So
not played.
so
December 7th, this came out.
okay.
84.
So Taggart and Rosewood are instructed to follow Axel, who cons his way into a primo suite at a luxury hotel in Beverly Hills. And after Axel notices that they have followed him there, he there's the iconic scene where he orders them food, room service to their car. And as they are distracted,
A late supper.
As they are distracted by the late supper, he gets some bananas from a very young Damon Wayans.
I don't think that performance would fly in today's climate.
No.
Doing a very stereotype based over the top flamboyant character.
Right.
Yes.
So, and it doesn't need to be that way
Take the
too.
bananas.
Yeah, he like hands him a whole bunch of bananas.
But I don't know. I still was able to laugh at it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think that it could be considered super offensive. It's kind of like, wouldn't fly today, but
Well, it's also like, I mean, this is also how many years before, like, In Living Color, when they did Men on Film.
right. Mm-hmm.
So,
So this is the famous banana in the tailpipe sequence where he shoves the bananas in there so they can't follow him when he peels out to like investigate I think he was going to the warehouse. Oh, peels out. Yeah. Oh boy.
Nicely done.
Unintentional banana humor. You gotta love it. So
sometimes you just got to slip those in.
this is true. Slipping on a banana peel joke. Love it. So anyway, they come to realize that Victor Maitland is the one who's masterminding this whole crime ring, smuggling ring, and
smuggling drugs, smuggling German bearer bonds,
and I'm only kind of stopping there because I realize I could just go on for way longer talking about the plot of this movie. And, there's
that kind of sets it up.
But what happens after that is that Rosewood and Taggart get in trouble because of the tailpipe situation. They get off of the case. Foley brings them back into it. He kind of convinces Rosewood to get involved, which brings Taggart into it. And, they end up saving the day. And I think that the moment that really gets them to bond, and I think this is before they're actually off the Axel Foley tale, is when he brings them to the strip club and they thwart a robbery, which was coincidence that it was just going to be happening.
Right. Yeah.
Also,
great scene. But it's that Foley has those because Foley is, and this is something I have to get into a little bit more, but just in terms of plot, Foley relies a lot more, and Foley has been trained to rely a lot more on instincts, cop instincts. And that's a lot of what he talks about is hey, I followed a hunch. That's what cops do. And
Beverly Hills is very by the book.
They're very by the book and not very it takes, he mentions it several times about the coffee grounds in the packing in the warehouse.
Right. So
he finds the coffee grounds.
So this warehouse is basically where they're sending things to Dodge, going through customs, and the coffee grounds, as any good cop would know, masks the scent of cocaine or whatever drugs.
But it takes even Taggart doesn't get that. It's not until Bogomil hears about it, the captain, played by Ronnie Cox, and Bogomil's the one who's I love Ronnie Cox's performance in this because he does a great job of very sensibly and logically going from being the hard-ass by the book police captain to then, being, you could see the cop in him coming out.
Right.
But one of the things that I was like, that I guess I noticed watching this movie now more so than previously, was the commentary, perhaps unintentionally. And you have to remember 1984, we're in the midst of the, Reagan era. And this was released, a month after Reagan gets reelected in 84. Mm-hmm. And you really have that wealth disparity. And you see the difference. The movie opens with this montage of Detroit,
yeah.
And you see what Detroit is like, and not just Detroit, but also like what cops are like in Detroit, what the police station is like in Detroit. And it's a lot of like cluttered desks and phones ringing and chaos and just like people doing things, and there being a lot to do. Meanwhile, when we go to Beverly Hills, we see the same. Well, we see a similar montage, and then we see the police station, which is really high tech, considering that they don't appear to have much serious crime to deal with. So it's like you have all the wealth in the world, but yet like any crime that's going on is going on right under your noses, because you have all this stuff to look for, stuff that's not happening. And in that respect, it also reminded me of Demolition Man. And the web of irony here is spinning, but Beverly Hills Cop was originally intended to be a Stallone project.
Yeah.
And Stallone rewrote the script, renamed Axel as Axel Cobretti.
Yep.
And then when Paramount was like, yeah, no, that's not what we want, Stallone took it and made Cobra.
Yeah.
So, but interestingly, I was like, when I'm seeing, Foley, like, this is the cleanest police car I've ever been in, and he's swearing, and no one swears in the police. Like, I was waiting for the little profanity alert.
That's a really interesting observation.
And getting Rosewood on his side, it almost reminded me of of how Spartan kind of gets Lenina Huxley to kind of go along with the program, though, without the weird sex scene.
Right. Thank goodness.
Though in part 2 we have Billy's weirdness.
Oh, we get to
comes out
when we get to learn more about Billy. Each time we get to see a little bit more about Billy, it's always a lot of fun.
Though I have some theories about Billy in part 2 versus Billy in part 1.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we then just move along to, well, I'll just say that the first one, this is a spoiler, if whatever.
It's the 35 years in the making.
Yeah.
It's a spoiler, 35 years
after
in the making.
A big shootout at Victor Maitland's mansion. The good guys win, and Bogomil stands up for his crew, basically says that everything that they said happened, and
by the book.
So happy ending. Everything is good. Luckily, he goes back to Detroit and isn't in too much trouble. So,
because Bogomil
calls
Todd
him,
and vouches for him.
So, moving on to Beverly Hills Cop 2. In this one, we start with Axel Foley working undercover in a legitimate fashion on a credit card fraud case, coincidentally with one of the people who was involved with the cigarette smuggling in the first one.
It's like the cousin of...
I think nephew.
You're not dealing with Johnny Bananas. Oh, yeah, nephew.
Yeah, so in Beverly Hills, they're working on something called the Alphabet Case. We see this really crazy jewelry store robbery sequence, and Brigitte Nielsen is like timing the whole thing and commanding everything that's going down. And
it's slick.
It's very well orchestrated, and
it's very Tony Scott.
Yes. So the first one directed by Martin Brest, second Tony Scott. And then the third is John Landis. So 3 reputable directors. Very, very interesting to see in sequels. I feel like a lot of times with sequels, I mean, this sometimes when it's a second one in a franchise, it's still a pretty decent director, but then I feel like it usually trails off after there when they get...
When it becomes formula,
Yeah.
well, yeah, when it becomes formula, it's just like, okay, well, we can hand this over to everyone. It's like, okay, here, make a Beverly Hills Cop movie. You need to know what to do. Here, watch this one.
So
Change some shit up.
So Beverly Hills Cop 2, we've got Brigitte Nielsen being a head person in this criminal organization that's doing all these robberies, and it's also interesting.
It's being run out of a gun club.
Yeah, we see Bogomil early on, kind of doing good cop work. Kind of going for a jog in, this weird industrial area. They get reprimanded. Rosewood and Taggart get reprimanded because Rosewood takes the Alphabet case to the FBI. It's this whole weird convoluted thing, but basically they're only given 2 days to solve the case. Oh, no, sorry. Bogomil is given 2 days to solve the case, but
Right.
Rosewood and Taggart are given traffic duty because
Right. Yeah. There's the new chief is
he's a doink.
a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember how Axel gets involved.
Well, because Bogomil gets shot.
Right, Bogomil shot. Yeah, and by this point, they Bogomil, Taggart, and Rosewood and Foley have all become like really close. They famously have gone on some sort of fishing trip together, as you can tell by the photograph
Yes.
they all have, where they're all standing with a fish. And so Bogomil gets shot by Brigitte Nielsen.
Brigitte Nielsen. Yeah.
She targeted him and tricked him into stopping to help her fix her car, and sure enough, and you could tell that like he figured out who she was. She's wearing like a wig, and then he like takes it off of her because a 6 foot tall blonde woman is kind of like a key person in this investigation that he's been I guess taking a lot of steps with, like he's gotten very close with. So Axel comes out. He tells Inspector Todd that, well, I'm trying to remember exactly how that shakes down, but Todd is really pissed at him. So he's only supposed to be gone for like 2 days. And Jeffrey, played by Paul Reiser, who's also in the first one, he's just another Detroit cop. He is given the like Lamborghini to drive around that he's been using as part of his operation with the credit card fraud case. And Jeffrey's kind of become his man on the inside to try to help him.
Well, Jeffrey just needs to drive the car around so that the people don't know Axel's out of town, I guess.
I don't understand. I guess they know that car means that he's around. I don't know.
Well, the license plate probably. I don't know.
So
I'm not involved in the Detroit criminal underworld. I can't tell you much about it. I'm sorry.
So Todd gives him 3 days to solve that credit card case, but that's not the way that Axel Foley runs. He doesn't really follow the rules all that much. So he goes to Beverly Hills. He cons his way into staying at this like huge mansion by telling the people, like the construction guys who are working on it, that they were given the wrong blueprints and there's not supposed to be any right angles.
They didn't get the updated ones. There's not supposed to be any. It's supposed to be round. They want the house to look like a donut.
And he's like,
have a house that looks like a donut.
Yeah, he's like, these people are rich. If they want to live in a house that looks like a donut, let them in a house that lives in a donut. So it's super silly and really bizarre that he's doing something that wildly illegal.
Oh yeah, it just.
I mean,
so beyond the limits of reality.
Staying at a fancy hotel and, conning them into giving you a room that you will be paying for.
There's a big difference, though. Big difference. Because when that happens, he, when he does that, he uses race. he makes them feel uncomfortable.
This is true.
At the hotel. Because he comes in and he's got he drops an N-bomb.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, there is a big difference. It's what he does in the second movie is far more troubling than the first one.
What he does in the second movie, I think a lot of the second movie is it's not there to serve the story. The second movie is very much a spectacle. It's the soundtrack. It's the action sequences. Yeah. I mean, it was like, I believe we've spoken once or twice on here about the summer of 1987.
Of course.
And when for those who aren't familiar with this, should be most people, our family took a trip to California in the summer of 1987. And we've got it's like the big family trip pretty much for all time. Yeah. And, there's video of it, and we went to the Chinese theater, and the big, Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Eddie Murphy's were the newest handprints there.
Oh, yeah.
There was a big wax statue of him as Axel Foley. Beverly Hills Cop 2 was, and this also wasn't when everything was a sequel or a remake or a reboot. So, I mean, it was a real big deal that summer that, Beverly Hills Cop 2, sequel to, one of the biggest movies, I think at that, for a long time, the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time for quite some time.
Right.
So it was a big deal, and I think because of that, Tony Scott was hired because Top Gun came out in 86 and was huge. And I think it was just you gotta make this a sleek, slick looking, make Eddie Murphy look like a star.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about in the first one, Eddie Murphy's wearing a grimy t-shirt and hoodie. In the second one, he's got his Detroit Lions jacket that he's known for in the Axel Foley role.
And he's bulked up.
He is bulked up.
Time.
He's more polished looking. I mean, the movie itself is just brighter,
It's sleek. It's more
very sleek.
I don't know if I would call it brighter, because Tony Scott, I don't think, has a very bright style.
It's a little bit more crisp. It is.
Crisp, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that a lot of the Tony Scott comes out, especially in that first sequence in the jewelry store. That feels very Tony Scott to me. The action sequences
the shootout at the 357 club or
right.
Whatever it's called.
385 Club. 385.
The 385 Club.
The very symmetric logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very late 80s.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop 2. I mean, it's it's one of those movies that it's fun to a point. I don't enjoy it it's not as funny as the original.
No, it's
got a little more action.
It has its moments, but I will say the funny comes when they go to Rosewood's apartment. And you get that glimpse inside of Rosewood's personal life where he's got plants everywhere. He's got a wall of guns. He has a pet turtle. He's got Stallone posters all over the place. Rambo and Cobra.
Which is interesting because in the first one, he says when they're during the shootout at Victor Maitland's, Rosewood says, "I hate machine guns."
Oh, yeah.
And which is why I think that Rosewood definitely went through some therapy after the Victor Maitland incident.
Yeah.
And I think Rosewood came out of it the way that we see him in Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah. That's a good theory. I don't know. He seems way more well-adjusted and at peace and he has a purpose. And I don't know. I really like that sequence. And, they start singing the dating game. Is it the dating game?
The dating game
match
or the
game.
Yeah,
They start just
which that was improvised, I think.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah, and it's just like a fun moment where it's like these buddies connecting, where it's like, you know, that they've had personal time together in between the movies, and now they're working this like case together, and it's like, it's fun. It's not Axel like messing with them or trying to trick them or distract them. Like they're really truly working together to solve this case, because they're, you know, fourth in their little BFF clutch got shot.
They're schmegs, if you will. I don't.
That is a very inside
Dad's
reference.
Yes, it's our father and his golf buddies.
Yeah,
the schmegs.
Oh boy.
So, you know, Bogomil and his fishing buddies.
Yeah. So anyway, they're working really hard to solve the alphabet case. There's Axel finds a shell casing at the scene of the, was it Bogomil shooting? I'm trying to remember where he found that shell casing. But he found a shell casing, and
I think was it that Bogomil had found it, and then it was with all of his stuff, because Bogomil's daughter,
that could be,
like, showed Axel all of the stuff.
Right. So the shell casing leads them to, they bring it to this gun club to try to find out where the shell casing came from, because it's a very unique looking shell casing. And what struck me a little bit odd about this, and like you were saying before, how it's kind of like they're shoehorning in a lot of these moments that are like very like Beverly Hills Cop moments. You know, he doesn't walk in there and like find the guy that knows stuff about guns that he's been referred to by, is it Taggart? Like, somebody just knows this guy. But instead of just walking in like normal, he does this whole like thing where he's all sweaty, and he's got this bag, and he says there's like, he's dropping off this like explosive device and stuff in it. And it's like, did you really need to do that just in order to get in to talk to this guy? Or was it just Axel Foley moment here?
Well, because in the first, it's when he goes to the club, and you know, another thing that probably would not fly in today's climate, but when Axel Foley pretends to be Victor Maitland's gay lover, who, you know, tests positive for herpes.
Yeah. Super bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they were, that, and also probably because Eddie Murphy came up with the joke about, like, you know, his two daughters, Monique and Unique.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's no set of children better named than Matthew and Modine, thanks to Jiminy Glick.
My two sons, Matthew and Modine.
So, yeah, the gun club is run by, I forget the name of the villain in this one. I like just saw it, but I feel like they've got just such like 80s names that they just blend together. I know that Brigitte Nielsen is Carla. And
then Dean Stockwell is the munitions expert.
Yeah. So anyway, the bullet casing is theirs. It's like a specially designed one for their people. So they clearly know that Axel.
Oh yes, Maxwell Dent.
Oh my God,
yes.
It's such an 80s villain name. I love it. So.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah. So basically, they solve the alphabet murders. I just can't keep on getting more and more into it, because this will be the longest episode.
There's not really a need to, and I mean, yeah, it's a Beverly Hills Cop movie. They solve it. Bogomil, spoiler alert, Bogomil survives.
Yes, Bogomil survives, and they save the day, and things get smoothed over with Inspector Todd back in Detroit, even though he totally catches...
and with the house.
And with the house. Even though in Detroit, Jeffrey gets caught because he crashes the Lamborghini.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a whole thing. But yes.
With Marcy in the car.
With Marcy in the car, of course. So, yeah, as I mentioned, we've got the posters for Cobra and Rambo in Rosewood's apartment. Stallone was married to Brigitte Nielsen during the filming of this. Although I read that she was sleeping with Tony Scott during this.
Yeah. Yeah, I read that.
Brigitte, you crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
then we've got Beverly Hills Cop 3. And
Yeah, we do.
Beverly Hills Cop 3, it's definitely trying to just be like, okay, how can we make this be a Beverly Hills Cop movie for the 90s? It has definitely some funny moments in it. Like I said, Serge is there. Serge, who was an assistant at an art gallery, is now legally dealing arms. Like, you know, sets up shop at trade shows to show the like Annihilator 2000, like a new weapon for the 90s. It's very 90s. It has a little microwave on it.
Oh, yeah.
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 And his whole scene is just so funny. But okay, I will start at the beginning of this one. Axel is in Detroit and he is trying to bust up an illegal chop shop. The line that he says when he enters the chop shop after it's been taken over by the real bad guys, "Hey, is this the illegal chop shop?" is something that's been like in my head since I must have like first seen this movie. And I feel like I say it from time to time when I'm like walking into a room, if it's like at a party or something. And I know that no one else gets it. Look, whatever. Okay,
That's amazing.
I'll start.
It's just usually that's me. So.
Yeah, right. So I'll go back a little bit. So there's this super fun chop shop where they're like singing along to the radio and like dancing and like totally just goofing off. And meanwhile, outside of there, Axel and the rest of like the Detroit cops are ready to bust the place, and he called off the SWAT team because he's like, come on, it's just like a chop shop. This isn't a huge like criminal enterprise. There's no need to get crazy here. So,
Yeah.
But what he doesn't realize is that Ellis DeWald, played by Timothy Carhart, who was in Thelma and Louise with Susan Sarandon, is there to, I guess, take a truck that has some sort of U.S. government material inside of it. Mm-hmm. Right. So,
I don't remember. It's been 25
fair
years.
enough. So Ellis DeWald and his guys get in there and they kill everybody in the chop shop. And then that's when Axel knocks on the door and says, "Hey, is this the illegal chop shop?" And quickly realizes that something else is up, and gunfire begins between all of them. And Inspector Todd comes during the middle of this and tries to help out. Meanwhile, he gets shot and dies at the scene, which is very, very sad. You know, Axel is pretty torn up about it. By that point, they've been working together for quite a long time. They've had their ups and downs, but they have become friends.
I mean, they've got a history that goes back prior to the initial Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah. So, So Ellis DeWald and his people get away. You see when they open up their case with guns in it that they're wrapped in towels for, oh my God, is it just called Wonder World?
Yeah, Wonder
World, which is this theme park.
Yeah.
So it's odd that they would be using those towels to wrap their guns in, but whatever. So I think that does Axel find one of those? Because that's like what leads him to California. I think it's like something like that. Like he knows that Wonder World is like a thing.
Haven't you watched it recently, or
dude? Did
you not watch it
recently? I've had a long weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
he's led to Wonder World, which is in Los Angeles. So he goes out. He really wants to figure out who killed Inspector Todd. This is the big thing. And he goes out to California, and of course he meets up with his buddy Rosewood, who is now the DDO JSIOC, which is the Deputy Director of Operations for Joint Systems Interdepartmental Operational Command.
That's one thing I do remember very well is just kind of all of the initial humor.
Yeah, the DDO JSIOC. So
yeah,
basically his job is to orchestrate, I guess, criminal investigations beyond, I guess, jurisdiction lines. So,
which then allows him to take part in this investigation.
Exactly. Because you can't have a theme park in Beverly Hills.
No.
Right. So,
no. I'm sure as we're saying this, there's a theme park being built in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, right. So and that's also when Axel meets another one of the Beverly Hills cops. Taggart is no longer there, but he meets another cop, John something or other. Can't remember his
Flint?
Sure, John Flint.
Is it John
played
Flint?
by
Am I just making
Hector
that up?
Elizondo, who was in the movie Mother's Day with Margot Martindale, who was in Lorenzo's Oil. And I get you get the impression you're trying to figure out, like, is he actually a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Kind of toes the line a few times. So Axel goes to Wonder World to investigate, like, to kind of see what's going on. And what's up?
This is random. But I just was, and of course it stopped. But I'm looking on IMDb for Beverly Hills Cop 3, and I'm gonna have to take a screenshot of this and post it so that people know what I'm talking about. But I am fairly certain that one of the images, one of the pictures that they use is not from Beverly Hills Cop 3, but is from Dragnet.
Oh, that's weird.
I'm pretty sure that's the guy who explains, like, the chemicals that are on the
that's
like
not
the train.
That's not from Beverly Hills Cop 3 for sure.
No, that's from Dragnet. That's weird. Okay, so
sorry
for that interruption. I just had to point.
So
that
Axel
out.
goes to Wonder World. I keep on wanting to call it Wally World, even though it definitely isn't.
Well, yes, that's. I think that's the proper instinct.
Yeah. So he goes to Wonder World, and it seems like I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with the way that he goes about things, but he just kind of like walks into a restricted area and starts poking around. Like, he goes into kind of like the tunnels of the theme park, and he like walks into a random control room where he meets, what's her name? Janice. I thought I wrote it down.
Teresa Randall was the actress.
Teresa Randall, who's great in this. I mean, and she becomes kind of his ally there. She's just running the ride.
She's the Jenny Summers of this one,
totally.
Except with no connection.
With no connection initially, until there's a bit of a romantic connection that never actually is seen on camera, aside from a few remarks, and they decide to go out after everything is done. This movie, so anyway, what's interesting about this movie is that he knows that Ellis DeWald did it almost immediately, because he saw Ellis DeWald shoot Inspector Todd, and then when he sees Ellis DeWald as like the head of security for Wonder World, he immediately knows that it's him. And when he's trying to like tell people that he did this, they're just like, no, that's impossible. He was, vacationing and da-da-da-da-da. And, Axel is kind of just thrown out and put on like the blacklist and everything. And I don't know, it's like Ellis DeWald is kind of untouchable in the world of Los Angeles crime prevention.
He's highly respected. He wins an award.
Yes, there's an award ceremony that Axel goes to with Rosewood and of course makes a big scene. And
just the only way I remember Ellis DeWald's name is because of Eddie Murphy just saying it so many times in that scene.
He does. And it's a
clapping his hands.
It's a great villain name. I don't know. I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I remember, maybe like 10 or 15 years ago, I was just like, you ever just get like something in your head and you're just like, where did that come from? And what even is that? The name Ellis DeWald popped into my head. It was kind of like my memory was like, hey, Ellis DeWald. And do you still need this information? And I was like, Ellis DeWald.
So I think I have maybe this is related, maybe not, but I do remember at some point in the time frame works that I think we were having a conversation and I meant to reference the character of Ellis from Die Hard, but I think I called him Ellis DeWald. And
was this with me?
And then I am almost certain we had that this was some type of conversation that we had, and where I was like referencing like, the Sprechen Sie Talk and like Ellis from Die Hard, and I was like, yeah, that's Ellis DeWald, and it's like, no, I don't think so. Who's Ellis DeWald? And wait a second, that's got to be a name, right?
Maybe
and then
that was it.
I forget how we came around to it, but it's like, wait a second, that's the bad guy from Beverly Hills Cop 3. So I don't know if that was what put it into your head or if it was already in your head.
So weird
at that point, but I was going to bring that up, and I just didn't.
But Ellis DeWald just like gets in your brain. That name just like hooks in there.
Well, every time I'm in Home Depot and there's like the DeWalt like line of tools, and it's like Ellis DeWald.
Yeah, he's making tools now.
Man.
So at that award ceremony, it's like a celebrating the Man of the Year or whatever for crime prevention. That's where there is like the little trade show where Serge is spotted. And just one more time, I'm going to just praise Bronson Pinchot a little bit. What's really interesting about him is that he does have a flamboyance to his character, but he makes a comment when he's like showing the video, like the promo video that he made for the Annihilator 2000, that it just like shows this like swimsuit model, but like very like muscular like woman using the Annihilator 2000, and he just turns to Axel and goes, "Do you think they're real?" and then he has this like comment where he's just like, "She's my personal trainer, but I just can't help myself when it comes to like croissants," or whatever he says. And he's like, "I wear a suit all the time. Who cares? Like, what does it matter?" And it's just like, whatever. If he improvised all that stuff or what, like, so good. It just works for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't even mention Gilbert Gottfried in Beverly Hills Cop 2. I feel like he is kind of taking place of that, like, comedic moment. He plays the accountant for the bad guy, Dent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who he tricks into letting him use his computer because he says that he's there with all these unpaid parking tickets, and checks into his computer to find out what Dent has been up to. And there's like flights booked for like Costa Rica or something like that. Anyway, moving on.
That's it.
So
done.
Right. So what's interesting about Beverly Hills Cop 3 is that he knows who the bad guy is the entire time. And it's all he's trying to do is get everybody to to be convinced that this is the guy. And it's an interesting twist because it doesn't give him many opportunities to try to solve anything, because it's already solved for him. It's really just a matter of getting him to slip up.
He's just trying to expose.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know. There's a lot of and also when Serge is talking about the Annihilator 2000, happens to mention that he sold one to Sly Stallone. Another Stallone reference.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I don't know. Beverly Hills Cop 3, it's clearly the worst of the bunch. I like moments of it. There are certain things that get stuck in my head, like, is this the illegal chop shop? And the name Ellis DeWald. Surge's role always puts a smile on my face, but it's just like, it's also very bright. And I feel like for it, like, it feels like it wants to be like a Die Hard movie, but it's just like too polished.
It's kind of, well, yeah, it's polished. It just doesn't have any character. Like, at least Beverly Hills Cop 2 had, it was distinct. It's got a distinct style to it. The first Beverly Hills Cop is kind of like stylistically, it's your standard 80s action movie, but the action scenes are done incredibly well. And it was something that I'm just, as I was watching Beverly Hills Cop and just like lamenting the state of action movies.
Yeah.
Because I was just watching like the car chase in the beginning. And I was like, this is so impressive because it's really happening. Like,
Yeah.
that they really had to, like,
There's
none
no
of this
CGI.
is computer generated. So
Yeah, you just see cars bashing into each other.
yeah. I mean, it's magnificent. The action sequences are fantastic, and they feel, they feel real. Like in the shootout at the end,
Right.
fantastic.
A lot of things about those shootouts also felt very, and I mean, I've never been involved in a shootout, nor do I plan to be or hope to be, but there's something about it that felt like, I don't know, it seemed like it could happen that way. The way that people get hit with bullets seems like a little more realistic. I don't know. The way that they are running from gunfire seems a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. So John, earlier, I know I accidentally referred to Beverly Hills Cop 3 as Beverly Hills Cop 4,
Yes.
but that does lead us into the potential, futures for this franchise.
Right.
And that's apparently happening, right?
Well, yeah, allegedly it's happening after they finished the Coming to America sequel, which may already be happening.
It's been shooting coming to America.
So there were also talks of a Beverly Hills Cop 4. Was it like 2008? It was quite a while ago. And that got...
Well,
I'm not talking about the TV
was, like-
series.
Right. But there was Beverly Hills. There was talks about Beverly Hills Cop 4 with like Brett Ratner directing. Right. I think that was around the time of like Tower Heist.
Gotcha.
Which, by the way, I enjoyed.
never saw it. I'll check it out.
I mean, Brett Ratner directed it, so. But Ben Stiller, Eddie Murphy, it's got a nice cast to it. But
Yeah. So there also was they did a pilot for a Beverly Hills Cop TV series where Eddie Murphy was just going to have a cameo in the first episode. And allegedly what happened was during testing for it, like there's a knob that viewers turn whether they like something or dislike something. And basically it was whenever Eddie Murphy was on screen, it went to the positive side. And that's kind of the only time that really happened. And he was only ever going to be just in the first episode as like a cameo. And it's like, if he's the only reason why people are going to watch it or like it, then there's no reason to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I mean, so Eddie Murphy. So, I mean, man, Eddie Murphy, like you said earlier, his prime just went for such a long time. Yeah. And like he was, in the days when you would have an actor sign a contract with a studio and work exclusively for that studio, like Eddie Murphy and Paramount Pictures in the 1980s were, I mean, he made them billions, trillions of dollars, perhaps. But by the late 80s, like, and if you actually look at the number of hits he had, and I have to look this up. I didn't check it out, but like I was trying to think of what, like, all right, well, what did Eddie Murphy have come out between Beverly Hills Cop and Beverly Hills Cop 2? And I thought, well, Golden Child.
Yeah.
And I don't remember Golden Child being a big hit. So I don't know that I feel like Eddie Murphy had, it really was not a big, critically very poorly received.
Yeah.
But so he had like 3 hits in a row, the 3 smash hits, 48 Hours, and he had the hit, comedy special. He had Delirious, and then The Golden Child kind of bombed. Beverly Hills Cop 2 was a huge hit, as was Eddie Murphy's concert film Raw that came out that year. But then after that, it was like, all right, Coming to America,
Right.
in 88, very successful. And then another 48 Hours, though, did not do so well. Neither did Harlem Nights was before that, and I think Harlem Nights was such a vanity project. And I think it was like Eddie Murphy really started getting like very full of himself, and it became difficult to work with. I know he clashed with John Landis on Coming to America. Mm-hmm. So the fact that John Landis is back for Beverly Hills Cop 3, is kind of amazing. But I think by the like mid 90s, like Eddie Murphy was kind of like, I think before this, like Boomerang had been moderately successful, but The Distinguished Gentleman hadn't done well.
Was it maybe not until like The Nutty Professor that things picked back up?
I think yes, but not really for long, because The Nutty Professor was a big hit. And then what, Metro?
Yeah, I mean,
like, and then came all of the Pluto Nash.
right. Meet Dave. Well, Meet Dave was later.
Meet Dave, Imagine That. Dr. Dolittle, I think, was like late 90s, but then that was also the beginning of the Eddie Murphy family movies.
Right.
So it was Haunted Mansion.
Daddy Daycare.
Daddy Daycare.
Well, when was Bowfinger?
Bowfinger was 99.
Okay.
And what's crazy is, Bowfinger was one where Eddie Murphy was kind of just an actor
Right.
on it. And I guess he was able to, find some humility for that. But what I'm excited about is that Eddie Murphy seems to have kind of he took a beat. Seems in the, like, he's taken a beat. And I think, what I was reading was that he really wants to end his career knowing that he ended his career funny, and that he was thought of as funny. And, and while I'm certainly interested in seeing what that does to, his reviving Coming to America, I'm really interested to see he's talking about doing stand-up again.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see what he does with that. Excuse me. It's looking to, I started watching Dolomite Is My Name.
I'm looking forward to watching that. I hear it's great.
Yeah, I need to watch it when I have energy. But like it seems like Eddie Murphy has kind of is maybe getting to that place where he's not like, I don't know, trying to make Norbit every couple of years.
Well, and this is something that he said about Beverly Hills Cop 4 when it came up like 10 years ago, is that like, it's not like he needs the money. So he's going to do it when it's, going to be done right.
Right. So that said, John, how do you think Beverly Hills Cop 4 could be done right?
I think what I would like to see from Beverly Hills Cop 4, I mean, clearly you have to capture the humor of, I'll say, the first 2 Beverly Hills Cop movies, and, the spirit of Axel Foley, who can con his way into getting into situations or getting out of situations, as it may be. And I think that what really lacked in the third one was the action, which was very lazy. And it felt very closed in, even though it's in this like big amusement park. And like Los Angeles is a very big open place, but it all felt very closed in. And I feel like if it was done similarly to the way that like the Mission Impossible movies feel, not like as grand and intense as they are, because clearly those are their own thing. But like if the action felt the way that some of that action went, and Axel Foley isn't as polished, and you know, he fights dirty, and that's what was great about the first two, is that like, you know, he's not this like super cop, which is it just occurred to me that that's the thing that he says about Rosewood and Taggart.
Yeah.
But
Rosewood and Taggart,
you know,
yeah.
he fights dirty, and I feel like that's something that you really want to see more of. And
He does what he needs to do.
He does what he needs to do. He's quite a bit older, you know, than he was then. I mean, clearly. And I think that there's a lot that can be said about that. Showing Axel Foley as like somebody who maybe has had a dip after all of these exhausting excursions in California. Maybe like he's kind of toast, and his life in Detroit is just kind of like plateaued. Maybe he's replaced Inspector Todd and is just kind of like behind a desk most of the time. And he gets that call from Rosewood that he's needed out in Beverly Hills. Maybe Taggart gets killed or something. I don't know. But I'm less concerned about the plot of it than I am about the feel of it. Because what really bothered me about 3 was that the feel of it was just off.
It's flat.
Yeah, it was flat. It tried to appeal to, I don't know, a younger audience. I don't know.
I guess.
Well, there was no strip club scene, which differentiates
Right.
it from the others. I don't know. It just, I don't know. It was too much of a bubblegum cotton candy fare for me. So I want to see something a little bit more exciting, kind of along the way that it feels to watch one of the newer Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
Tell me
Definitely.
what your thoughts are.
So, kind of along the same lines, I could see, so Axel is much, you know, it's 25 years since Beverly Hills Cop 3. He's definitely older, maybe not retirement age, but I could see him being like a police captain or a police chief. I mean, if you think about it, he's probably around the age that Bogomil was.
Yeah, that's true.
In 1 or 2. So I could see him being in that position of power, and I could see him honestly having kind of mellowed out, and maybe he's like, he likes feeling comfortable, and he's like, you know what? I like, by the book is a lot less exhausting. And
So do you think that
I could see him
do you think he's still in Detroit, or would you have him just in Beverly Hills?
I think I would have him in Beverly Hills. I think that I would have all right, this is kind of one way to go, and I think it's kind of cliche, but it's also like, let's make an 80s action comedy here. And I'm imagining, like, what if this, like, you know, he's the chief, and this, you know, this young cop comes in and, you know, kind of plays by their own rules, and they're like, you know, I don't know, maybe it's a Michael Pena, or I don't know why I just thought of Michael Pena. I'm like, because I could see Michael, because Michael Pena's, he's not, well, you know, he's not that young. That's true. So I don't know, like a Michael Pena type, I guess, who's like funny and charismatic, and who maybe like starts to bring out that, like, and they get in, and there's a case, and there's some case going on, and maybe it connects back to something from one of the other movies, maybe it doesn't, but, and Axel is kind of like really resistant to this kid's methods, but then he starts to be like, oh shit, now I'm the one who needs to be reminded what it's like to be a real cop. And like, maybe Axel is just like, maybe he's become, you know, in all the technology of the 21st century, he's just kind of allowed himself to fall back and rely on it. And then you have the blowback. It's kind of like how, I feel like there's almost a blowback of young people turning away a little bit from technology, and not entirely. And it also might be more of a Seattle thing, where like the turntable is still the preferred method of music listening. But I just I'm wondering if like, what if Axel has just kind of fallen into this, like, all right, like, hey, I'm a police captain in Beverly Hills. I don't have to, like, I live in a nice house now. I have like things and I'm relatively comfortable. But then this kid comes in, and damn it, if he doesn't bring out the old Axel, and like, eventually, what if like the old Axel comes out, and he's like, and this new kid is like, you know, he's got some skills, but he doesn't know, as Inspector Todd says, you know, you don't know every damn thing, or
right,
whatever, however he says it. So what if Axel then has to like come out and be like, no, this is how you do this, and you know, watch. I think having one of those moments where he's like, no, I got this, and then he goes and talks his way into the exclusive club,
sure,
or something. So
I'm trying to think of like what young actors would be like, you know, fresh in the force. But I mean,
I don't know of like, I mean, I know we've talked about Noah Centineo before.
I never seen him in anything.
Playing He-Man, but yeah, I've never seen him in anything, but I'm kind of like, maybe he'll be decent.
I feel like the only young actor...
I kind of want someone scrappier.
I know, I feel like the only like young actor, aside from like super young, like Jacob Tremblay, would be like Timothy Chalamet, and he's like just a little too young and even too scrappy.
I just don't necessarily buy Timothy Chalamet.
Oh, what's that? There's someone I'm thinking of who I'm going to look up really quickly. He was in Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan. Oh, you know what? I really like Dane DeHaan in Chronicle.
Oh, I never saw Chronicle. I hear it's really great.
That's Michael B. Jordan in that as well. Yeah, that's an awesome movie. Dane DeHaan. I'd be interested to see Dane DeHaan.
What was the first thing that I remember him from? Was it The Place Beyond the Pines was the first thing I saw him in, where I was like, this kid, it's pretty good.
Oh, really? I'm pretty sure I've seen him in other things.
That was the first thing I saw him in that I like he really stood out as being like, okay, this kid's gonna do okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was Chronicle that maybe it was Chronicle was the first thing I saw him in. Oh well. Anyway.
Well, he was also in the Amazing Spider-Man series. He was like the Green Goblin.
Yeah, I only saw was that the one with Andrew Garfield? Yeah, I saw the first one, and I don't remember it all that well. So, but yeah, Dane DeHaan, yeah, be a good choice. But I mean, it's like, regardless, I just think that like setting it up to, you know, where Axel maybe has gotten to that comfortable place, because it makes sense. He would be like, he wouldn't be just automatically like the same old Axel Foley. I think something would need to pull him out of it. And you know, it's like, yeah, of course, like bring back Rosewood. Hell, bring back Serge. Like,
yeah, you know, you have to wonder if, I mean, we all know I'm a fan of Serge. That's been established. Yeah. If he could be used in a good way, I feel like his career trajectory would have to put him in some like really bizarre position. Like he's like Secretary of State or something.
Well, and here's what I'm thinking. Interesting that you should say that. But so, like, one of the they were really trying to push this concept of a Beverly Hills Cop sequel where Axel Foley goes to, like, London and teams up with, like, John Cleese or Sean Connery on a case. And I'm wondering, though, what if, and I'm not thinking of that, but I'm like, what if Axel does have to, like, leave the country? What if they have to, like, get into Mexico, but they can't go, like, through the border or something? So what if Serge deals in...
Serge
like,
is a coyote?
Like, maybe. What if Serge... But also, what if Serge can get, like, you know, I don't know, passports or things, you know... IDs. Like, what if Serge is just totally, like, black market?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Through all of his connections, think about his connections through the art dealing world, where he also worked for someone who was smuggling drugs, etc. And then he's an arms dealer.
Well, I mean,
which I think was supposed to. They were supposed to establish that connection, I think, in part 2. Oh, yeah. I think there was supposed to be something connecting Serge to the gun club.
I mean, what if Serge is the bad guy? Like, what if he is... Because he's the thing that connects, like, 2 of these situations. I mean,
I guess so,
he's
yeah.
not necessarily directly connected with Ellis DeWald, but he's at the thing with... Like, he's still in that world. I mean, the first one, he's way more directly connected, but...
But what if you have, I mean, I guess if you have Serge as your bad guy, it also then doesn't, it gives you an excuse to bring back the character rather than just, whereas in 3, I felt it was kind of like, Bronson Pinchot is available. Yeah. We can put in this character that people love, especially John.
I love Serge.
And no, I admit, in the original, I was, you cover that up. That's not sexy. So great. But yeah, I think, and it's funny because initially, like, I remember years and years and years ago, I was thinking, like, man, a Beverly Hills Cop 4 with, like, maybe, like, where his, like, you know, he had a son and his son shows up at the door. But
that's very Die Hard 5, you know?
Or Shaft.
Right.
Like the most recent one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So, no. I like the idea, though, of just a younger cop bringing the old Axel to the surface.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's just for one more time.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I really like, I mean, who doesn't love the character Axel Foley? The song Axel F is like, it gets in your head and you don't care. It's so good. No, I definitely bought some, like, cheesy, like, soundtrack compilation cassettes in the 80s to have that song. It's just that good. And, you know, the name Axel Foley will, like, always be in people's minds. You know, that's an Achmel. It's just an iconic character. Who doesn't like it? And who wouldn't want to see him doing more of his shenanigans?
I mean, I guess as long as, like, Eddie Murphy can bring energy to it, and it's the same goes for Coming to America. Like, we don't just want to see Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall do Coming to America cosplay.
Right.
Like, we want to see a story that puts that like gives you these characters and, like, just plays the comedy for real, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because I think that's when Eddie Murphy's movies are strongest, is when the comedy is based in a situation that's consistent and that everybody is also on board. And it's not just, everybody's there to just be scenery for Eddie Murphy, but it's like Trading Places, like Dan Aykroyd, Jamie Lee Curtis, Denholm Elliott, Ralph Bellamy, Don Amici, they all play a huge, part in making that movie what it is. Coming to America, Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, Sherry Headley, Eric LaSalle, John Amos,
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones. They all do their thing. So it's and which is also what I think makes Boomerang stand out among Eddie Murphy's 90s movies is the really strong support in David Allen Greer, Martin Lawrence, Halle Berry, and Robin Givens.
Yeah.
And, sorry, not to mention Eartha Kitt as Strange.
That's right.
Or not, was that Eartha Kitt? No.
Wasn't it Eartha Kitt?
It was Grace Jones. No, wait, Eartha Kitt. Yes, I think Eartha Kitt was Strange. Grace Jones was in it as well, and she's amazing. But anyway, that's when I think Eddie Murphy really needs a solid ensemble, and I just hope that with these new movies he's doing, and it seems like with Dolomite is his name, or is my name, there's a strong cast. So I'm excited. I'm, big fan of Eddie Murphy.
Right. Well,
I would love to see him.
I feel like with this beat that he has taken, he understands that like the projects that he signs on for need to be like really good, because he doesn't need them to happen just for the sake of like making money. He's not.
Who would you have? Sorry,
go on.
Who would you have direct Beverly Hills Cop for?
Well, Christopher McQuarrie, first of all, to get that Mission Impossible feel. No, that's a good question. Maybe Edgar Wright.
That is the.
Is it really
the first? I keep thinking, but it's like
I like the way that I like the way that he does action and comedy.
Well, I like the way that he does cars, and I feel like car chases are a big part, right? And he also does action. He does action and comedy extremely well. It's just I wouldn't want Edgar Wright to do it if Edgar Wright wasn't a fan of the original Beverly Hills Cop.
I get the feeling that he would.
I feel like yes, I think so as well. I feel like it's the type of thing where if he was a fan of it and he had a really strong feel for it, he could make an excellent. I think Beverly Hills Cop 4 could easily be the second best in the series. Like 2 is fun, but it's not the be all and end all.
No, it's memorable because you've got Brigitte Nielsen, you've got the Playboy Mansion. I don't know. There's just a lot of things about it that kind of get in your head. I mean, the iconic look of Axel Foley wearing the Detroit Lions jacket.
Yep. The soundtrack, the Pointer Sisters, George Michael.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
All the great acts that were. I mean, I remember that sound. Like everyone had that soundtrack.
Everyone had it.
Bob. Bob's Shakedown. But there's so many hits in that movie on that soundtrack. The first movie has 2 hit songs in the first 5 minutes.
The Heat Is On.
And The Heat Is On goes right into Neutron
That's
Dance,
right.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So, it's harder to do that today. It's harder to really, you don't have that soundtrack that just everybody is into. It's just not the world we live in anymore.
We're not living in the age of the soundtrack. I mean, Batman Forever may have been the last great soundtrack.
Oh boy, hold me, thrill me, kiss me, kill me.
So let's talk about our next episode.
So next episode, because we decided to go with a Martin Brest film this week, and so we are going to have a Martin Brest twofer. Our next episode will be 1988's Midnight Run, starring Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin.
Great film.
If you have not seen Midnight Run, I don't know that there's anyone I wouldn't recommend it to. It is so underrated.
I believe that I saw that it's streaming somewhere.
It.
Let me quickly check on that.
It is rarely streaming.
I thought that I saw that it was on one of the services. No, it's not. I thought I saw it recently.
That's one that I own.
Mirage.
That's one that I watch frequently. I mean, well, frequently being like maybe once a year, once every 2 years. But anyway, I'm looking forward to talking about Midnight Run.
Same here.
Next week.
So if anybody has anything they want to lend to our Beverly Hills Cop episode, or any thoughts on Midnight Run or any other episodes that we've talked about in the past, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com.
Oh, and if you happen to be in the Seattle area, by the time this is online, we will have 3 more performances of A Few Good Men. Right. If you're interested in seeing my own personal passion project reboot, please email us and I will send you more information.
Great. Well, Dan, good journey.
That's it. Good journey.